everybody, and welcome back to the Mediums podcast. Today, I am so pumped to have Kelli Miller with us. She is an astrologist and a psychic and a gifted teacher. So I'm very grateful she's here. She has this incredible saying on her Instagram, and I want to share it with all of you. She says, I'm here to teach you how to truly find, unlock, and use your maximum potential. It's time you know your entire purpose and use it to your advantage. So Kelli, oh my gosh, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
I am so happy to have you here. For people that don't know you or don't know your story, how did your gifts awaken? What types of gifts do you have? Give us all the tea.
So I kind of shut it down when I was about 19 years old because I didn't understand it, kind of scared me a little bit. And then when I was married, I remember sitting there going, God, I remember those abilities. I'm an adult now. Go ahead and turn it back on. And boy, did it get turned on. So I quickly went through a spiritual awakening. That was probably about 15, 16 years ago. I didn't have anybody to talk to about this. I was in a small town. You don't talk about stuff like this. So everything I learned was internal, meaning that through meditation or signs or signals or having like a Buddhist monk sit down next to me on a bench, like weird stuff. But it wasn't until something happened and I had to move back here to Eastern Nebraska that I realized, wait a minute, there might be something to this. Pretty soon, I remember sitting there at the time I had some consequence to action. Let's just put it that way. And I ended up living in a trailer and I saved up enough money to live in that trailer. And I was so proud of myself to get that far. And there was one day my son got in trouble and I realized I don't want to raise my kids in this environment. I need to get out. So I remember sitting there and saying, okay, God, I know I put myself in this position, but I will do whatever it takes to get out of it. Show me what
Beautiful.
I need to do. The next day, my kids went away. Somebody invited me to a party, went to a party. A guy had been talking about how his dad has been dead, but I'm like, yeah, your dad's been gone for 7 years. Like, get over it. My dad's gone too. But he just kept talking like he just died yesterday. And I kept drinking and he kept talking and I kept drinking. And finally I turned around and I said, I don't know why you're so upset. Your dad's right behind you. He's got rainbow suspenders, a black and white label beer, and he's smoking a cigarette. I said, heck, he's the life of the party then. He's still the life of the party now. And everybody turned around and looked at me and went, what did you just say? And I'm like, oh.
You're like, did that come out of my mouth?
And so I didn't think anything of it. The next day I was working at the garden center. And now, mind you, this is a town of like 5,000 people. So word got around quick.
Yeah, I'm sure.
People were coming to me at the gardening center going, can you read me? And I'm like, I don't read people. No. About 3 days that my boss is like, you need to do something about this. And I'm like, okay. So I would put the kids to bed after work and then I would have somebody come over and I would give them a reading in my trailer. And for me, I didn't realize that it was written all over your face or you could see that coming from a mile away. I thought everybody could do that. I didn't realize that I could and you couldn't. So I quickly realized that I had these abilities that I thought honestly were common sense and they're not.
Right.
And then that's when I'm like, okay, this is how I get my kids out of a trailer park.
Did you feel like you knew it? Were you like, this is it? This is my ticket out?
It was blatantly obvious. And then it was probably 3 or 4 months of me doing this, every day. Somebody asked me if I wanted to do a party. I'm like, yeah, sure, I can do a party. So then that quickly spread the word. And then I had to then at that point really consider quitting my job because I was getting inundated with so many people calling me. And I thought, God, tell you what, if I'm supposed to quit my job, my full-time salary paying job, and I'm supposed to be a psychic medium in the Bible Belt of Nebraska, you better prove it.
Yep.
And so I went to work that day, didn't think anything of it, went to lunch, and the line was going out to China. It was Burger King. And I went in really quick. And this guy turned around, looks at me, and he goes, hey, do you want a medium pop? I'm sorry, what? And he goes, do you want a medium pop? I said, yeah, I'll have a medium pop with a cheeseburger and fries. That was weird. So then I sit in my car, I'm eating my cheeseburger and fries, and I turn on the radio, and they're talking about the Long Island medium. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And I've always told my spirit guides to give me 3 signs because I'm a little slow. So I was going back home and I get a phone call And somebody said, Kelly, do you remember telling me to go to the doc? I said, yeah, because I thought she had like endometriosis really bad. And she goes, Kelly, I have stage 2 uterine cancer.
Oh
Thank
my
you so
God.
much for telling me to go to the doctor. You saved my life. And that was my third sign. I picked up the phone. I called my mom and I'm like, hey, Ma, I'm just going to let you know I'm going to quit my full-time salary paying job, but I'm going to go do this. And she was like, for the love of God, go back to church. So
Exactly.
but I knew without a doubt, this is what I was supposed to do. I
Yeah.
asked for signs. I got them. I'm in. I don't need to question it. I'm in. And I thought, what's the worst that can happen? I go back to working at the garden center. Who
Yeah.
cares?
Yeah.
And that was 12 years ago. That was
That's
12 years ago.
amazing. I
And so
also love that question. Like, really, what is the worst that could happen? Like,
right.
if I
What's the
truly
worst that can
follow my
happen?
dreams and follow my intuition and do what
Yeah.
I know I'm meant to do, what is really the worst that could
Yeah.
happen?
And I knew coming out of the closet, so to speak, was going to upset some people. So I sat my family down. I said, this is what I'm going to do. And either you're going to accept it or you're not. And if you don't, that's cool. I still love you irregardless. I'm not asking your opinion. I'm just letting you know what I'm going to do. And it might affect your life. So I'm giving you the common courtesy to let you know this. And my family, thank God, was so supportive. But the people that I thought for sure were going to be on my side weren't. And the people that I
Isn't
thought
that
for
the
sure would
truth?
pick me up didn't. And so you really, when you go through something like that and honor yourself, you're going to find out who your true friends are and who your enemies are very quickly.
Oh,
So what I find
100%.
ironic, here's what the great part is that now those people that were naysayers calling me the devil, everything else, those are the ones now calling me for help.
Maybe it just took them a little time. And
It did.
so how do we give them a little grace to, it probably
That's
scared the crap out of them. Like,
it did
ooh,
because
now
people
you're going to
fear
have
when
to
they don't.
activate something inside of me. And I don't want to look at that part.
Right. And I think people fear what they don't understand. And so when I decided to retire 2 years back, I realized that there's nobody out there teaching this and really having psychic mediums level up, so to speak. Because I'm teaching it with morals and ethics. Like, how do
Yeah.
you deal with somebody that you know that they're going to lose their baby? What do you say? I mean, those are big, serious questions here.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize that as a psychic medium, you do have an obligation to a point. But then again, you're not here to scare your client. You're here to help them and help
That's
them for their
exactly
highest
right.
good.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I decided to come up with a program called Enlightenment Academy to help the next generation of psychic mediums, because I didn't have anybody helping me to understand any of this. And if they did help me, it was so woo woo, I couldn't put it into terms or working with it. You know what I mean?
I
So,
do. And for me, very similar to you. It happened on my own. I didn't tell anybody. I had to figure out these gifts. Like, what are they? What do they mean? How do I use them? And I read a lot of books and podcasts and learning and trying to figure things out. And so for me, like, I just adore that part of your mission is to help teach the teachers, so to speak,
that's
help
right.
heal the healers, in a way. So I love that. Absolutely love that. What brought you to that? So you did readings for a long time, and then did you have another kind of like stirring inside of you or calling to like amp up your game a little bit, or how did it
Yeah.
happen?
In a way, I honestly got burnt out on readings. I mean, I was doing 6 readings a day. Plus,
That's
I
a
was
lot.
also doing a live audience reading. So I was doing like 500-600 people doing a tour here in the Midwest. And so I got to a point where I saw too many people that had my gift that didn't know how to use it or incorporate it. And they were asking me valid questions. And I'm like, I didn't have anybody to refer them to.
Yeah.
I really didn't. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to sit there and say you're my student, then I want to teach you. So,
Yeah.
and I want to teach you the rights and the wrongs and how to handle certain situations. So it was almost just like a natural, like I just got burnt out with readings, simply put, because I felt like I was repeating myself all the time, because
Sure.
so many people were starting to go through a spiritual awakening and they didn't know what was going on. And so I thought, I can teach somebody how to help them at this point. It's better for me to teach.
That's actually how part of my own awakening story is I was seeing Rebecca Rosen, another intuitive
She's
medium.
amazing.
Yeah, she's awesome. So are you.
She's
the
amazing.
Yeah, and so she is, who I just happened to get readings from throughout my adult life. And she was like, well, I'm supposed to tell you, you can do this too. And I literally said to her, you're freaking crazy. And I was like, you're not actually, you're really beautiful. You're a wonderful person. I didn't mean to say that. I'm just a little shocked by what you said. And then it literally happened like the next week.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And I was like, that's insane.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like that happens for you too. You were doing
All the
readings for
time.
people
I
and
was
you were
telling people
like,
all the time, like, you have this gift. Let's start developing. Let's start using it. They're like, no, I don't. I'm like, remember when this happened? They're like, yeah. I'm like, they're like, oh, I'm like, yeah, that you already have this. I don't think you recognized it. Neither did I.
yeah,
Neither did I. I thought it was common sense. So
so into it. Okay, so one of the other things I think is really cool is you do these like I mean, I'm going to call them rapid fire Q&As on your Instagram. Like I don't even know how you handle it. You'll have like thousands of people tuning in
yeah,
and there's like questions and it's flying and you're grabbing stuff and answering
yeah.
stuff. Like how do you prepare for that? How do you know what's coming? Like how do you do that? How do you do it?
I, I have, so my number one ability that I have is called claircognizant. It's the ability to know. I don't know how I know, I just know. And I have to trust that that ability is going to help answer those questions. And it's so strange because I never know what questions are going to be asked. I just roll with it. And almost always, if I don't know an answer, I'm going to be honest and say, I don't know. I actually got pegged on Facebook because somebody asked me a question. I was like, I don't have an answer to that. And I have an answer to everything. And that one I couldn't answer. And she asked me, we have pineal glands. Do animals have pineal glands? Do they have a third eye? I'm like, I know they got a chakra system, but that's like, I couldn't answer that.
Yeah.
So, but for the most part, I can answer just about every question because somehow in my 10 years, I've dealt with that question. It really, or I've looked into it or researched it or whatever it is. But I try to pick out the questions that are going to relate to the most people. I
Sure.
really do.
Yeah. But
Some
it
of them
is
are, some of them
insane.
are quick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll get the yin and the yang. You'll be like, "Is my grandpa there?" To like, "What is this obscure little rock and how does it affect me?" Like,
Uh-huh.
I mean, you will
Yeah.
literally get from the yin to the yang, and I was like,
Yes, I
"Holy
do.
moly's, Kelly!"
Yeah. And like I said, my favorite part is when people that I'm talking to get that aha moment. They're like, oh, so that's my favorite because if they're aware of it or they recognize it, they can then fix it. They can change it. They can
Yeah,
transmute it. They can do it.
that's
So
totally true.
that's my favorite.
I also believe in the power of parallel messages. So even if you don't get a reading, if you're talking to a medium in a large group, or you're even like listening to a podcast and you get the feels and you're like, I think that was meant for me. Like tell me, what do you think about parallel messages? What are your
It
thoughts on
absolutely
that?
exists.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So when I was doing live audience readings, what I would do is I would take a step back. My spirit guides would bring me two people next to me. No matter who I chose for those four people, each one of them had a valid message for everybody in the room. So if somebody, drowned, they were telling me how they were drowning and how beautiful it was. It was not scary. It was not, it was not anxiety. It was a beautiful thing and it was an easy release. And
Mm.
things like that really do affect the crowd because I think that from movies and everything else, we think one way when in reality, it's something that's a beautiful thing. So nothing to fear, nothing to worry about. And so, no matter who I chose, it was a relatable message to everyone that was in the room. So the divine works fun. They're cool. I like how their synchronicity works. It's cool stuff.
Yeah, I agree. And people always think it's going to be so serious. And sometimes it is. Like sometimes I do readings and it's like your dad died of cancer, your mom died of cancer, you lost them both within 6 months. It's just, and it's emotional for them. But other times, like it's literally like funny
It
and
is.
jokesters and they got like hilarious stories and they're
They
wanting
really
them
do.
to like laugh and enjoy the
Yes.
experience.
Yes, that's the one thing through grief is that I'm like, well, how do you help somebody with grief? And you're like, make them laugh. And don't think for a second that your loved ones or your spirit guides are like literal and serious all the time. No, they're not. They're smart asses.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
really are.
We're souls having a human experience and we go back to our soul. So like it's the essence of us in a way
Oh yeah,
still. Yeah.
absolutely. And it's still there. You bet.
Yeah. Do you have any examples or times where you channeled something and it was really memorable, like either a really powerful story or message that came through or really funny, like just something that was like
My
imprinted on you as a pretty
my
memorable
my
experience?
favorite ones are when I'm sitting them telling them, no, you have a sibling or you have a twin. No, I don't. Yes, you do. You have a twin. You were adopted. Yes, I was. You have a twin. Well, that's funny because everybody said in Sioux City I have a doppelganger. I'm like, So here in Nebraska, in Iowa, where a lot of people were adopted, that building burnt. And so all the records burned as well.
Oh my
So a
gosh.
lot of those records were lost. So I will, every once in a while, I'll have somebody that will come up to me and I'm like, oh, you have a twin. They're like, no, I don't. I'm like, yeah, you do. And then they'll send me a picture of their twin. They found them. And usually I can tell just about where they're at or located. So those are my favorite ones. But my favorite readings, honestly, are helping women to have children after they've been
Oh,
told, oh, you can't have kids. I'm like, yeah, you can. We just got to tweak a few things.
I
So
needed you 10 years ago. Kelly, where were you 10 years ago?
I know I have helped 34 women to have babies.
Oh,
So
that's
that's my favorite.
amazing.
That's
Okay, how
absolutely
does that work? Do they give you their team in spirit? Do you call their team in spirit? What,
Yeah,
I don't know what
I
phrases you
always
use.
talk to their spirit guides
Yeah,
because your spirit guides know you better than you know you. So it's just easier
totally.
to talk to them. And then usually I have 9 times out of 10, we have to talk about how they were raised by their father because their
Oh,
dad, at
wow.
least here in Nebraska, it's usually because their dad was there, but not there. Dad's a farmer. So he was there, but just not emotionally there. Or dad was like a truck driver. He was there, but not there. So not necessarily dad abandonment issues, but we have to talk about the lack of love or affection that you got from dad. And then oftentimes they marry somebody just like their father. And so then we have to talk about like, no, you need that love. And they're like, yeah, but I'm like, there is no yeah, but you need it, accept it. So if we want to have a baby, we got to do some things different. And then we talk about the sacral chakra. Then we talk about, how to open that up and balance it. But a lot of times they love their dad and they know that their dad loves them, but there's no affection there. And sometimes that does develop like endometriosis and other ovarian issues within the woman. And I usually see it, especially between the ages of 10 and 14.
Oh,
So,
interesting. So it's
yeah.
almost like, to make sure I'm hearing you correctly, it's almost like if we can address some of your shadow work and some of these deep rooted things going on with you, it will actually impact your health.
Right. But they don't recognize it. They're like, well, I
Yeah.
love my dad. I'm like, but that's the problem. And so when I really talk to them about it, they're like, oh my gosh. And so when they get the click, what ends up happening is they will, because your body, it's a mind, body, soul connection,
Love
and your
that.
body will always, it's always the last to react. And so what ends up happening is that then they'll have 3 bad menstrual periods, really bad, because your body is finally getting it
Like
and
shedding all of that.
shedding.
Yeah.
So, and then after that 3rd month, I'm like, you're good to go. And so they're like, no, I'm like, you're good to go. Let's roll. So, and almost always they get pregnant right away and they're like, and they're very like, well, could be. And I'm going, and I
Yeah.
have to, sometimes it could be a miscarriage, especially if your body isn't used to that. But then usually after the 2nd time, it's go time. So,
What a
and
cool
that's a pattern.
niche.
Mhm.
I
But
mean,
I'm interested in people's patterns, and people are people are people. So plants are too. I was a horticulturalist originally. So, but if you stress out a plant, they get sick with a viral, bacterial, or fungal infection. You stress out a person, they get sick with those things too.
yeah, it's
So,
so very true. So
mhm.
tell me a little bit about like how do you receive intuitive messages? Like what are your clairs? Can you talk through them and explain them for an everyday
I try.
person? Like what types of things do you experience?
Yeah. So the first thing is claircognizance. It meaning that I don't know how I know, but I know. So understand that my dad was deaf, so he taught me how to see the world through a different set of eyes.
Oh,
So I'm
fascinating.
already looking at how you walk. I'm listening to how you speak. I'm watching how you're looking at me, how you're shaking my hand. I observe all of that. And then when you sit down, I tap in, so to speak. And that's usually when my spirit guides are right here. They're like, we're in. And then I hear your spirit guides going, we're up. And I'm like, cool, we're good. Like, mic check, we're good. Okay. And then almost always I'm going to ask them, do you want a psychic reading, which is past, present, future, or do you want more mediumship reading where I'm talking to dead people? And they'll usually say a little bit of both. I'm like, cool. And I have all the clairs: claircognizant, meaning I know; clairvoyance, meaning I can see; clairaudient, meaning I can hear; clairsentient, meaning I can feel; gustassense, and alience, which is taste and smell.
You
So
can
I
do the
have
taste and smell?
yeah,
Oh,
all the abilities. The one ability I shut down when I'm doing readings is clairsentient because I don't want to feel your pain. I don't want to feel
oh,
your
yeah.
emotions. I have a job to do. And in order for me to stay at a high vibration, I can't empathize with you because it will cause me to lower my vibe. So I usually shut that one down. The only time I use that is if I'm helping the deputy sheriff, find somebody, or if I'm doing a live audience reading. Otherwise, I never really use that one. I just ask for that to be shut down. And so
So
then
when you say like clairvoyance, like what do you see? Do you actually physically see things like orbs and colors and objects, or is it like see in your mind's eye?
When it first started, I could see it as pictures or images in my head. That's still the best way, but hands down, easiest way. After a while, I could start seeing the people and the spirit guides, but they looked, I know the old movie like Predator, you could see the outline of them, but they're still kind of fuzzy. Like you could see through them, but they were fuzzy. After I told their spirit guides to use their aura or their chi or their energy to manifest a little bit better, then I could see them. So
Oh, interesting.
yeah, because I didn't want them using my energy. It drains my butt. So I'm going to use
Yes.
their energy. So use your auric field or your chi to be able to communicate. And that seemed to work pretty well. So, but I can see them. I know best. I can hear them. Sometimes it gets a little fuzzy. And if that's the case, then I usually have to grab a crystal for my throat chakra because your clairaudient is associated with your throat. So if I would do that, then it would usually clear it up pretty well. And really, I always tell my students, you don't need to have every single ability. Just practice the one that you know.
Mm-hmm.
Just practice the one that you know, and all the other ones will click on when you're ready.
That's what I feel like too. Like, I kind of call them like up leveling, where they'll give me a new one. You're like, okay, you kind of got that one. Now we'll give you some more tools and more gifts. Yeah.
Yeah. And after a while, they'll start giving you more signs too. So, and they love to do it when I was on stage, which pissed me off. So like, I know my sign for electrocution.
Right.
And so I'm on stage and I see the sign for electrocution with a bright flash. And I'm like, I don't know that sign. I'm like, wait, do it again. And they show me my sign for electrocution and then the bright flash. I'm like, and I step back to let my spirit go, like, what the heck is this? And they're like, think about it. I'm like, think about it. Now is not the time to think about it. So I'm like, okay, electrocution, bright flash, lightning. I have a 23-year-old son who died of a lightning strike. They were out in the field. And I got one mom that's like, that's my son. I'm like, cool. Okay, now we can relay the message. So
yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I try to tell people, and everybody's different, but for me, it sounds like it's also kind of for you. It's like, it's kind of like a game of charades for me. Like they're showing me pictures of things and I know what that means for me. Like we have our own language. Like like when they show me like shoes and they're standing in a shoes, they're telling me I'm taking accountability for why I died or how I died. That's what that means for me. But it might be something totally different for you. Like it's like we all have our own little like flashcard system.
And that's what makes it hard to teach because you are learning spirit's language and there is no language book on this one. So, and I always encourage my students to say, even if you don't know what that means, say it anyway.
Yes.
That's how you learn. That's how you learn what the signs are. Like, for instance, ALS, they do this.
Oh.
That's my sign for ALS. And at first I was like, because I'm asking, how did you die? And they did that. I'm like, I don't know that. And so I said to my, my client, I said, this is what he's showing me. She was, he died of ALS. I'm like, got it. So from here on out, whenever I see that, that's my sign for ALS. So
yeah, some of mine are tricky. Like when they have brain stuff, like they'll show me like either big or little waves in their brain, just based on if they had like Alzheimer's or if it was like more like mental health. So like mental health is little, Alzheimer's is big, but that's like my sign for when they're trying to tell me about
mine
memory.
Are the waves. So if they had mental health issues, there was a wave.
Oh, same. Okay.
Yeah, it's the wave. For Alzheimer's dementia, they show me half a brain.
Oh, well, that would be easier because sometimes I'm like, is that a little one or a big one? Which one are you showing me?
So, and this one's usually bipolar. This is depressive, and this is OCD.
Wow.
I know. So
okay. Wow. So those of you that are listening, she's just showing me like different symbols, like part of the face, half the head, that kind of thing.
Over the face. Yeah. It's strange.
Yeah. That's so crazy. I love talking to other intuitives because it's so fun to be like, okay, what are yours like? What are mine like? Yeah, exactly. Okay. You touched on this and I want to circle back to it because I think this is also something that I need help with. But you talked about your energy and how you're like, no, I like want to tap into theirs. Otherwise it's draining for me. So tell me a little bit, like when people start awakening, how it can affect their energy. Did that happen for you? What did you have to do to like make sure that you could have the right energy to do this work?
Mine became pretty natural. So I just, all I know is that when I first started, I felt like I was using my imagination all day long.
Oh,
And
okay.
I realized it's not my imagination, it's my intuition.
Yeah.
And so people that are intuitive say that it's their imagination. And I'm like, no, you don't have imagination anymore. You have intuition. And that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
But I know that when I first started doing readings, I would have spirit come next to me so I could feel them, hear them, all of that. And I could only do 2 or 3 readings a day because it was exhausting. And I realized it's because it's kind of a symbiotic relationship. You
Yeah.
know, they're using my energy, but yet I'm communicating with them. So it's kind of a
Mm-hmm.
symbiotic thing. But when they leave, you're drained. And I'm like, there has to be a better way.
Yeah.
Um, so that's when I realized I'm like, maybe I should have your loved ones use your energy and see if I can still communicate that way. And at first, it was a little bit harder because they sounded like Charlie Brown's mother. Wah, wah,
Oh,
wah.
like you got a little bit of, what was that? Wah, wah.
Yeah, wah, wah. So they kind of did that, but I had to focus a little bit better. And once I focused a little bit better, I started grasping it. And then after a bit, it just got a little bit louder and it was easier.
And then
So
you didn't have the issues with it feeling
no,
energetically draining for you.
right.
Because
That's why
I
everybody said,
do
"Ooh,
all the
drain you."
things.
I'm like, no,
Salt
it doesn't drain.
baths, rocks, all the things, But I'm
Yeah.
earlier on in my journey too. I've really only had these gifts for about 3.5 years. So I'm trying to figure it all out
And,
myself,
and you got to remember, I've been doing this 10 years. So it's like I'm a marathon runner at that point. So it was easy for me to do 6 readings a day, turn around, do a party or, do a live audience reading or a workshop later on. So
Okay,
I
so you
just,
don't actually sit and do client readings, individual one-on-one readings anymore. Do you still have people that know you that call you on speed dial though? Like, okay, I have a question, like a best friend or family, or are they pretty good?
here's the deal with that one is that if you're close to me in my world, I can't read you anyway. So
Really?
I cannot read my husband. I can't read my children. I can't read my mother. I can't read my friends. I can't. So, and I've asked why can't I? And they said, because the point of me being here is to learn lessons. And if I knew the lessons were coming, I would avoid them. Therefore, I have to play the game just like everybody else. And
Oh,
I
fascinating.
don't get to cheat. So it's like I don't get messages from my dad who's been gone, just like I can yours, because I can talk to your people just fine. I don't
Yeah.
get that luxury for myself. So I have to rely on signs and signals just like everybody else does. So you
Yeah.
think I have easier access. I don't. I pay attention to the signs
Yeah.
better than most do, but I don't get any advantages to that.
When I told my parents, grew up very religiously as well. My dad literally was like, "Do you mean that you can help me talk to my parents?" And my grandpa is like one of my guides on the other side,
Yep,
truly helping me lockstep.
yep,
He's really there. Like he's learning as much as I am. But we're in this together. Like
yeah,
he's there to help
absolutely.
me. Yeah. So, but I can tell like if my daughter's lying and she's literally like, "Mom, how do you know?" I'm like, I'm not going to, I mean, you might as well just stop doing it because mama can
Right,
tell. I can
right.
absolutely tell not only just the things I'm observing in her, but I can just intuitively tell that she's not telling me the truth
Mhm.
or the whole truth.
There's been a few times where my kiddos, I got 2 20-year-old daughters and I have a 19-year-old son. And there has been a few times that I'm like, do not go out this weekend. You are going to get
Yeah.
busted. I am telling you. Well, how do you know? I'm like, I'm only psychic. Gee, let
Yeah.
me
You're
think.
like, do you know what I
So
do for a living?
yeah. And so what ends up happening in one ear, out the other, I get the phone call. Mom, I'm like, are the cops there? They're like, yep. I'm like, don't call me. I warn you. Done. I'm like, so
You're
it's
like,
just,
you got all the angel messages and you did not listen. So call someone
I'm like,
else.
do you not know what I do for a job? Do you not understand?
I
So
love it.
I really honestly protected my kids from this for years. Because I didn't want them to have the weird mom,
Yeah.
especially being in a smaller community.
Yeah. I get
But
that.
my son was the great one. My son was just like, Mom, everybody knows what you do and it's not a big deal.
Oh,
I'm like, it's
were
not
you kind
like,
of relieved? Were you like, oh,
yes,
okay, good. And we can
yes.
just kind of move forward and be a family.
Right. I'm like, okay, so, and they're like, Mom, everybody knows what you do. It's not a big deal. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. And I realize I'm like, yeah, I read half of your friends' parents, so you're right. They probably would know what I'm doing, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that the truth? Yeah, for me being in corporate America for so long and then moving over into doing spiritual work is quite jarring for so many people. Certain family members amazing, others not. Certain friends incredible, others the
Total
opposite of
different.
incredible.
Mhm. Yep.
Like what you said, you're like, wow, you are really not in my corner.
Nope.
You think
Nope.
I'm in a cult and off on
Right.
crazy land, you know?
Right. Right. And you're like,
And
wow. Mhm.
yeah, exactly. And then they like my team in spirit like shows me how to see them through a lens of love and just understand what they're going through and give them the grace that they're not giving me, if that makes
Right.
sense.
I always tell people I can never be mad at ignorance. I can be mad at stupidity, but not ignorance. If you knew better, you wouldn't react that way. If you could see things from my filter, you would
Yeah.
totally get it. But you're not there yet. You're not spiritually developed yet. You're just not there. So when you decide to get up on the mountain, let me know. In the meantime, I'm going to go over here and do my thing.
And like you
So
said, some of them came back around.
they do. Oh,
Yeah.
they do. They're
Yeah.
like, so I'm seeing 11:11. You're like, oh, you are now.
You're like, are you
You're
starting to
the
get a little something, something?
devil now.
Exactly. You're like, oh, are you like paying
I'm
attention to
like,
some
God, I'll help them,
signs?
but I need some brownie points on this one.
Yes,
I'll help them.
absolutely. Do you ever use your gifts like in a way that like for just everyday common things like to get a table or like just kind of weird ways that you can be like, oh, I intuitively know like how to get these concert tickets or how to get a table or how to this or that. Like, do you ever have things happen where it actually gives you an advantage in your everyday life?
Not so much for me, but other people. So I think about 8 years ago, I was in Vegas for an event, and I happened to walk by the roulette table, and they're like, "Hey, Kel," I'm like, "11," and I walked on, didn't think anything of it, and apparently it hit. I didn't know, and then they walked by again. They're like, "Hey, Kel," I'm like 30. So and it hit 30. I didn't know. Again, I just walked away. And so the third time it happened, they're like, "Hey, Kel," I'm like, well, there's nothing there. Are there zeros? They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, zero. And so they all bet on zero. Everybody won. And so that was the
Oh
time I
my
was like,
gosh.
oh, okay, cool. I went to go turn around and there was two security officers.
I was like, I bet they're going to escort you out. That's exactly what they showed me. You're like, they took her out of there.
They did. They took me in the back room and were like, we need to pat you down. And I'm like, oh. And so they explained to me what was going on. And I'm like, I didn't know it hit. They're like, we know, we watched you. And they're like, how did you know this? And by the grace of God, I had one of my business cards in my back pocket.
Yeah.
And I picked it out and I'm like, I'm actually a psychic medium. And they're like, you're kidding. I'm like, no. And they said, you know what? You can stay here for tonight, but you are not allowed to play any more games whatsoever. You do not talk about this. And I'm like, gotcha. So I've learned that, I can go with my mom and I'm like, Mom, sit down right here. And so she'll usually
like what machine? Like what slot machine to use? Oh, that's
I'm like,
good.
sit down right here. She's like, what? But just shut up and sit down.
Yeah,
So
just listen to
now
me.
she knows. Now she's just like, where are we going? I'm like, you're going to sit here and I'm going to watch you win because I can't win for myself.
Oh, you can't. You can't. Right.
No.
You can't see for yourself, can't win for yourself.
No. Or my brother will come over once in a while. And he's like, hey, let's go to the bar and we'll go play some Keno. And he's like, hey, Kel. I'm like, get these 3 numbers for me. And they hit all the time.
That's amazing.
I can't do it for myself.
When I first started being able to talk to my grandpa and my guides and stuff, of course, one of the first questions I asked was like, can I win the lottery, please? And they literally laughed. They laughed.
Yep.
And I was like, are you laughing at me? Like, why? Why can't I? Why can't you just give me the numbers? They're like, it's not for your highest and best good. I'm like, well, F that. Like,
yeah, I'm telling you it is. See, yeah, I've tried this one too.
Yeah. I was like, what do you mean it's not for my highest and best good? I will do so much good with that money. Like, come on, give it to me.
So the last time I asked, and I won't ask again because my spirit guide said, let me tell you what would happen if you win.
Really?
I'm like, okay. So I'm like, all right. And I saw a court litigation because they said that I cheated because
oh my gosh. You're like, you're right. I don't want to win that way.
Battling in court because they thought I cheated. And I'm like, oh, and they're like, you can win it, but this is going to be the consequence. And I'm like, oh God, that's not worth it. Screw it.
Yeah. And it's just money. I'll just manifest some in another way.
Like, it's fine. I'll figure it out a different way.
Yeah, totally. Okay, well, I would love to ask you a few like rapid fire your favorite things. So I love to do this with people. So tell me, what is your favorite food?
Tacos.
Oh, all different kinds? What kind of tacos do you like?
All tacos.
Okay, do you like pineapple? Like a fish taco with pineapple? Would you rock that? Oh, you would? Love it.
Absolutely.
I knew we were meant to be friends.
Taco that I wouldn't eat. So I'll just be real. Pork kind of is iffy, but anything else, it's a gimme, gimme.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. You could travel anywhere in the world. Where would you go?
I want to check out. I know this sounds weird. I want to check out like Thailand and the Philippines, and I want to go to like Ireland, England, especially what is it, Glastonbury, the one that is pretty high vibe there. So
Oh, yeah. I was interviewing another intuitive, and I didn't know this because, of course, I'm like kind of a rookie learning all these things. But she's telling me about how the earth also has its own chakras and like the
yeah,
7 main chakras. And so then, of course, I had to look it up, and I'm looking at like, where is your root chakra in Australia and your heart chakra in Maui? And I was like, oh, Lord, I need to build a trip, like an adventure trip where I take a whole bunch of cool, fun peeps and we go to the chakra zones.
yeah. I'm already for my husband and I personally. That's one of our weird little goals. So
Is
we've
to hit
already
all of
been
them. I mean, there's a lot, but like the 7 main ones you can like
7
hit.
mains. Yep.
Yeah.
And we've already
It's,
been to Mount Shasta, which is the root chakra. So
oh, nice. Like
yep.
about Fuji, I think I saw in
Yep, Mount
Japan.
Fuji, and then there's one in Australia. There's one in Glastonbury, England. There
Yeah.
is what Tibet. So
Yeah.
that's the crown chakra.
I
I
think one in
forget the other one.
California, if I remember right. I don't remember which one. I
Yeah,
think
I
it's
know
your
we're
third
talking
eye.
about.
Your third eye, I think, is in California, somewhere,
Yeah,
a place I'd never heard of. It wasn't like LA. Believe it
yeah,
or not, your third eye chakra is not in Los Angeles.
no, no, no. That's
Uh,
not even your brown eye.
no.
So
And then I also noticed you do from time to time do trips
mhm,
where like you plan trips and people go. Tell me about that. I think that
mhm.
sounds so fun.
I actually have a retreat here for the eclipse. I'll be in Sedona. So I'm taking a group with me to Sedona. And I like this one because the trips that I do for 5 days or the retreats, they're really about like just releasing. So we go into your skeleton in the closet. We're going to go there and we're going to
Yeah.
have you address it and see it from a different perspective so you can finally release it and let it go. So, and a lot of times we're digging in people's trauma,
Yeah.
and by the time they're back home, they can now see life from a different perspective because they're going to leave that trauma there. And I've seen people, I've changed. Wow. I've seen them a few months later, and sometimes I don't recognize them because either they lost weight or they cut their hair or they just glow. They're just different.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
Well,
yeah.
I love that. Do you have any coming up after that? Because I'm actually going
Yeah.
to be in Sedona like 2 weeks after you're there.
Yeah, yeah. I don't have too much planned. I just know that with this eclipse, something's brewing for me, and I can't stick my finger on it. And I know it's going to involve bigger or larger groups. So I don't know if I'm going to be doing more of another tour of sorts, or if I'm going to do nothing but retreats. There's something that I haven't connected the dots,
Yeah.
but I know myself well enough, and I know my signs that I'm like something's brewing.
Yeah.
So I told my husband, I'm like, can you give me till mid-May to tell you, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is where I'm going. So he goes, yeah, cool. I'm like, great. So I don't know what's going to pop out, but I know something's brewing
Is it kind
for
of fun though? Like a little bit of a surprise for you too?
I,
Like, okay, I know you guys are working on something, you're readying something else, and you're
yep,
readying me. And I
yep.
love that. I absolutely
It's
love that.
exciting. It's
But
exciting because I see why I had to retire when I did. I see, everything that happened, and I'm like, yep, I did everything right. I know, like, the timeline is perfect.
love it. I absolutely love it. Okay, what is your favorite holiday?
I'm gonna have to say Easter, and I
Oh,
know most people would say that's really churchy, but that's my favorite for the fact that it's spring. It's spring,
yeah.
and that's one of my favorite. Like, I don't know, I just love spring, and that's when the daffodils and the tulips are all blooming and everything's coming back to life. That's probably my favorite.
I interviewed someone that was a practicing monk for like 20 years, and he said the same thing. He goes, it's kind of weird, but I love Easter.
Yeah, I
And
do
I was like,
too.
okay, you're cool. That's cool. Okay. Do you have what is your favorite animal? And do you have any spirit animals that present themselves to you on the regular?
I don't. I know this sounds so strange. I love little piggies.
Oh, I love
I
that.
didn't realize until just recently that my mom said that we had a pot-bellied pig when I was a
Oh,
child, when I was a little baby, and he became way too protective. He wouldn't let anybody touch me, so they had to get rid of him.
oh,
So, but I like little piggies, but my spirit animal is a squirrel.
oh, it
So,
is interesting.
yeah. And whenever I see the squirrel, it's usually my sign to, you're dilly dallying a little bit too much.
Oh,
Let's get going. If
you're
I
squirreling
see,
around a little bit, huh?
pretty much,
Yeah.
if I see a praying mantis, that is my sign to slow down because you're going to get sick. You're burning your candle at both ends. You better slow down. And they're always on handles. I know that sounds weird, but it's blatantly obvious.
Yeah.
And then the last one is a blue heron. And so whenever I see my blue heron, that is my reassurance from spirit. You're on the right track. And I always see three. So like, for instance, before I would get up on stage, I'd go to Minneapolis, right, and do a live audience reading. But before I got up on stage, I would see three of them somehow, some way. And it's great because my naysayers are the ones that see them with me.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
exactly.
there's two. And they're all like, I'm like, just wait, there'll be one more. And then when the other one happens, they're like, no way. I'm like, I told you, spirit hears me. They hear you too.
Yeah.
So just talk.
You're like, I'm just highly tuned into the radio station. So learn how to do it yourself.
Dial in.
Yes, that's exactly right. Well, what's your favorite thing about what you do for a living?
It's my favorite right now is having so many messages going, I know you don't know me, but you've helped me out so much. Thank you.
Beautiful.
And I'm like, I don't know these people. And I mean, here in Omaha, I have people coming up to me and just like grabbing my arm and saying, can I give you a hug? You've helped me out so much. And I know that you don't even know who I am. I'm like, of course. So that's probably my favorite. I'm helping people out that even with my Q&As, I'm helping them to get some sort of burden off their chest, off their plate.
Yeah.
And have them really start to heal.
So if you, what advice would you give to somebody that's trying to awaken their intuition or activate their intuition in some way, shape, or form? Like, what advice would you give somebody that's like, okay, I'm willing to try. What should I do?
There's just two things. One, sit at the buffet table and learn everything that resonates with you. If it doesn't resonate with you, it's simply not your truth. Don't worry about it. So number one, sit at the buffet. Let's learn. Let's learn.
Try all the things on.
That's right. And then number two, meditate. My whole world changed when I started to meditate. I was reading self-help books, nothing like they all said you need to learn how to control your mind.
Yeah.
And so when I started meditating, my whole world I got out of a trailer. I bought a house. Now I'm in this house. So you don't realize how uncontrolled your thoughts really are until you sit down with yourself and try to stand yourself for 20 minutes. And that's not easy to do, especially for somebody like me that has ADHD. I'm telling you, it's not easy to do. But I remember my spirit guides at one point, I was upset over like 7 minutes. And they came to me that night and they said, do you know why you're so frustrated? And I'm like, no. And they said, because you don't even know yourself, because you can't even stand yourself for 7 minutes to sit there without a distraction.
Oh, you're like, woo, way to check me. Thanks.
I'm like, great. I got a lot of work to do then. So that's when I made myself sit there for 20 minutes. And yeah, it was painful. I realized that being bored is a good thing.
Oh, interesting. So, do you still have a meditative practice you do today?
Absolutely. Yeah,
and for you, is your meditation, what kind of meditation do you do? Because there's so many different ways you can meditate. Is yours just stillness and silence, or what kind of meditation is it for you?
It depends on the day. If I'm having a deficit day, then I can stare at a candle and zone out totally fine. If it's more of a hyperactive day, well, we better do a guided meditation because otherwise squirrel brain's going to win. So there's other days where it's really nice outside. I'm just going to sit outside with my cup of coffee and chill. So every day, honestly, for me is different, but the time I do it is 9 o'clock every day. So, nice. And some days I have something going on to where, well, maybe I'll only get 10 minutes in and then I'll do 10 minutes in the bathtub. That's good enough. So like I said, every day is going to be different for me, but I still try to do the practice every day.
Yeah. I try to also in the morning, even before I get out of bed, do just like clear a little bit, put myself in a bubble of light. And of course I want to go do a deep dive of that, but it's like, if I get on the train of getting my kid to school and all the things, I want to at least like take a couple minutes to set my day. So I always think that's a good tip too.
Absolutely. I usually do that with my cup of coffee. I'll wake up in the morning, cup of coffee, and I don't touch my phone. I just sit there for 10 minutes and be like, okay, what are 3 things that we have to do today? What are the 3 things? Because there's always 3 things. And if I do 4 things, I feel like a winner. because I used to
Oh,
have all these things done and I have 10 things and I'd only get 3 things done and I'd feel like a loser, like, oh, I
mm,
didn't get all my stuff done. So now I'm like, what are the 3 things that we have to do today? And if it could be as simple as putting in a load of laundry. So, like I said, I've learned not to fight myself. So I'm just going to do 3 things. And if I have a better day, I do 4 or 5. Great. That's a good day.
yeah, that's a really good tip just on life too. So
Yeah.
I love
That
that.
helps a lot.
Okay, how can people find you, connect with you, if they feel like they have some psychic medium gifts brewing? How can they get into your program? Like, give us all the skinny of how they can follow
Yeah.
your journey.
So your best bet is just going to my website, which is psychickelly with an I.com. I usually have all my information on that. My husband and I also co-own a business together called Awakenings, which is a crystal metaphysical shop. So we have that too. But for the most part, go to psychickelly.com. Other than that, I am on pretty much all the social media platforms, but I will fair warn you, there is a lot of scammers out there that love to
Yeah.
copy my stuff. So I will never personally message you. I won't do that. Only scammers do that. But Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube seem to be the best platforms that I'm using right now. I'm on Twitter a little bit. I'm on LinkedIn a little bit. But for the most part, I'm on all those platforms. And I try to do a Q&A on each one of those platforms once a month. So sometimes lately I've been jumping on a little bit more because with the eclipse season, people are a little
Yes.
nervous, a little fearful. So I've been trying to get on a little bit more to kind of calm their fears.
Yes.
So, but those are the best bets. Like I said, if you want to learn more about Enlightenment Academy, that is also on my website, and then you can read all about it. I think my next class is going to be more towards August, but I just got done teaching my last one, so I haven't gone into my website and fixed all of that yet. I will, but I haven't gotten that far.
Yeah. So just check back and see.
Yep,
By the time this podcast is out in the world, I bet it will be up there and
yep,
ready to rock and
it
roll.
should be.
Well, thank you so much, Kelly, for coming on the podcast. It's been such
My
an
pleasure.
honor to have you. It went so fast. You are just a delight and full of awesome energy. So thank you so much for being here.
All
Yeah.
righty. Thank you very much.
So, yeah. So, everybody always rate, share, subscribe. Let's continue to grow this Awaken podcast listening community. So, thank you, everybody. Until next time.
Bye.